Hi guys, Sarah here from Highland Haven Australian Shepherds and Highland Haven Dog Training, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 9 of Dog for Thought. Joining me is my co-host, daughter, and dog trainer extraordinaire, Sophie.
Hi everyone.
So what's up, Soph? What's going on in Dogland? Give us an update.
Puppies are getting big. I think they're 6 weeks.
They were 6 weeks.
Yesterday.
Today is a Tuesday that we're recording. They were 6 weeks on Sunday. 2 days ago on Sunday. Yeah. So yeah, they're big and they're at the pinnacle of cuteness. They start getting less and less cute as time goes on, but prettier, less cute, prettier.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, first they go through that really awkward adolescent
dorky
stage
phase
in which they're really cute in a different sort of way. And then they end up being beautiful as adults. But I think 6-week puppies are the pinnacle, 5 and 6 week old puppies. And they're super fun at this age. Don't you agree?
Yeah, because they're not like running everywhere, but they're definitely running. So
yeah, they're not
like,
bored just yet.
No, like you can still catch them and they still are super into you. Where like once they get bigger, then they start wanting to explore everything, which they've like gone in like the big yard. But they're definitely overwhelmed. Once they're like 7-8 weeks, it's like they're going to be in the big yard and they're not going to want to come back. And then we have to go catch all of them. And I'm like, it's time for you guys to go. Time for bigger and better things. But they're not bored yet.
Yep, they're not bored yet. They're super sweet. And we have Summer here, who is your dad's grand niece. So she's your cousin once removed, I think. She's, 18?
Yep.
She's a freshman at SUNY Cobleskill in the vet program, or the animal health sciences, or whatever they call it up there.
Yeah, but like her goal is to be a vet.
So she's on spring break, so we asked her if she wanted to spend the week with us and get overdosed on dogs, which she jumped at the chance, as I would have at her age as well. Somebody said, do you want to come spend a week with 6-week-old puppies? I'd be like, okay. That'd be like my dream. So she's been helpful and enjoying it and doing a lot of sleeping, as college students do when they're home on break. And the dogs are getting used to having a new person in the house again. It's good for them.
Yep.
So that's it for the update this week?
Yeah.
Nothing else is going on? No? Okay,
And we have a new training dog.
We do have a new training dog.
German Shepherd. I adore him, but he's 7 years old and he definitely has a lot of anxiety. He also is super duper, apparently he's super leash reactive and dog aggressive. And I say that in quotes because we've been able to socialize him with Twiggy and with Vivi, and he's done great. So, it's one of those cases where he's had a bad experience as a puppy and it created leash reactivity, and therefore his owners were too afraid to introduce him to other dogs. And so he spent 7 years with only humans, which is, in my opinion, a pretty sad life. Not a horrible life, but it definitely didn't reach his full potential. So I'm hoping the next 4 weeks we can get him to reach his full potential so he has more fulfilled life. And is able to play and like do dog things, which, is such a hard, I don't know.
Well, he is fear-based. He has fear-based dog aggression, right? So, and we could pretty much see that right from the beginning, which is a good thing because we can treat the fear.
Yeah.
Right. We can desensitize to the fear, which then makes the aggression disappear. So we would not have taken him if I thought he was a dangerous dog.
Like
to other
true
dogs.
aggression. So like I think of fear-based aggression, I think it's like false aggression. It's like I'm so scared. And then once you bring a neutral dog into the mix, which Vivi and Twiggy are very good at being neutral, then he's like, oh, okay, like they're not going to try to harm me. They're not going to do this. They're not going to do that. So then that fear kind of goes away and then it starts to turn into like more curiosity, and then that turns into play. Where like true aggression is it's just part of them. It's all management. But false aggression, you can manipulate and kind of put dogs that will, they can coexist with and have a good time with. Maybe not all dogs, definitely not dog parks, but being able to walk parallel to a dog and being able to smell and have some free time, managed free time, it's definitely possible with fear-based aggression. So
yeah, which is hopeful.
Yeah,
it's good. And I could tell that he's really, really good with people, which is kind of unusual for a 7-year-old German Shepherd They tend to be kind of particular about who they hang out with, but he loves people, which makes him easy to work with in that way. He's a sweet guy. So it's very, very rewarding to work with a dog like that when you start to see them be able to be around other dogs and not be stressed and anxious and aggressive. And that went really quick with him.
Yep. I mean, we've had him for 3 days. And we've got him to have like free time with Twiggy outside. He's walked with Journey, Vivian, Twiggy on leash. We've had Twiggy and Vivian off leash, and they were able to like interact and it's just so nice to just kind of see that light turn on, that flickering light turn on in the back of their head of like, oh my gosh, like other dogs are actually really fun. His social skills are definitely behind because he's never socialized.
Yeah,
really.
I predict he's going to be a humper.
Yeah. He's Twiggy, and he was able to take a correction yesterday, which is always kind of iffy with fear-based aggression because sometimes if they get a correction,
they overreact.
And then like, what the, and then the other dogs, and then that begins like a little scuffle. But he took a correction yesterday from Twiggy, and Twiggy's so good at just like correcting and walking away. And so she just corrected him, and he was like one of those Looney Tune characters. And then I just redirected that energy to something else, and then they were playing ball again. So
good. That's nice. It's hopeful. I hope we can. He actually had to sort of be rehomed. His owner, who's had him for 7 years, is going into the police academy. Won't have time for him. So his older parents, I think they're in their 60s or 70s. They're going to take him in. So he's going to stay here for 4 weeks because we want to really work a lot on calmness and stuff and leash walking, particularly reactivity, because they live in a condo complex and they need to be able to walk him safely on leash around other dogs. Not necessarily be in contact with other dogs,
but just be in close proximity and feel neutral.
Right.
Which he's been pretty promising. I mean, it's been so nice here the past couple days, and so a lot of people have been walking in our local park, and we've been able to pass quite a few dogs, and we probably passed like 10 dogs maybe so far in the last 3 days, and he's only reacted at one, and the one that he did react is our least favorite dog in the park, and so I give him a pass for it.
And he didn't react that bad.
No, it was just like a blah, 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 blah. Which wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, so I'm hopeful for him. We've only had him like 3 days or something like that. So, or 4 days. Did he come? I think he came on a Friday. So I am hopeful that he can make progress and then transition to this new home permanently and do well there. That's my hope for him. He's a sweet guy.
He is. He's a good boy.
And Twiggy and Vivi and Journey today have all done a great job being very, very neutral with him. When we were out walking him, Vivi was off leash and she came running up because I think you were giving him a cookie, and she like brushed right by him and he was like, ooh. But, she was completely not focused on him. So he was able to sort of get that shock and then be like, oh, I guess they're not dangerous. And then we walked him today with with Journey.
Journey, yeah.
Who looks totally different. So there's no, it's not that he didn't acknowledge her because he thought it was just Twiggy or, because Twiggy and Vivi look so much alike. But he really didn't even acknowledge her. It was really interesting.
Yeah. No, not at all.
And she's very neutral as well.
Yep.
So I think he grabbed a couple of sniffs as we walked, but then that was it.
Yep. I think Journey sniffed him more than he sniffed her. He was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. No, he was really good. Yeah. So I'm very hopeful that we can have good progress with him.
Yeah.
He's a good guy and he deserves it.
He does.
So today we're going to try to make this brief today. Famous last words. We'll talk, last episode we talked about, what?
It was.
What did we talk about? It was like a long episode. Struggle.
Okay. Yeah. Struggle.
Yes.
Okay.
And we had said we were going to talk about struggle, mistakes, and failure, and we never got beyond struggle. So today we'll talk about mistakes and failure and their importance in dog training. So we could probably segue with what happened today when we walked. Yeah. Do you want to start with that?
Yeah. So we were walking, and this was
with we.
Okay. So,
it was you,
Summer, and me. We were all walking
with the German Shepherd.
You tell it then. If you don't like how I'm telling it, then you tell it.
Well, just set it up correctly.
Okay, then you talk
All right,
about
I'll set it up and you tell us. So you're like your dad. You don't give like the important details in the beginning.
Okay, then you can tell it.
I can tell we have not had lunch yet today.
No, I'm a little hangry. It's 2:00. Let's do this podcast.
All right. So we were walking today in the park with you, me, and Summer as the people, and then this German Shepherd that we were talking about, and Journey. Mm-hmm. And we were at the very end of our walk. Go ahead.
And when we get to the very end of our walk, we go into this parking lot because it's just like a main road, and then there's like parking lots off of it. This is the last parking lot that we usually park at. And there was a lot of people there because it's a beautiful day, and because it's the main parking lot, that's where most of the people park. And I was walking up with the German Shepherd, and because anytime I'm walking with a reactive dog especially, but any dog, I'm always super vigilant to make sure like I don't set them up for failure, and I can kind of catch stuff before they can even catch it. And because I was walking with a reactive dog, I want to set him up for success. So therefore I'm looking for anything that could potentially damper that success that he's having today, especially at the end of the walk. It's always a bummer when we pass a super reactive dog at the end of the walk, and then we had such a beautiful walk, and the dog is now reactive, and then we have to put them in the car, and that's the last thing they remember. So I just see this woman working with this Rottweiler behind the car, and it was just kind of like a sus kind of situation. So
she was in between two parked cars.
Yeah, she was in between two parked cars. The dog was in the shade,
in a down.
Yep. And she had a really long leash, and she saw us, but the dog didn't see us, and it just, because of where she was, there wasn't a lot of room because it was in between parked cars, like a row of parked cars. So I was like, oh, we'll just go to the other side of the parked cars, because God forbid that dog lunges and doesn't see us and is reactive. We won't have anywhere to go, and I have a reactive dog.
My initial reaction, by the way, when I saw it, was not one of suspicion or concern, but like, oh, look, there's somebody actually training their dog. Because she actually had a bowl of water on the ground too.
I thought that
I was like, oh, this is going to be good. She's actually training her dog, to do some impulse control. Mm-hmm. But you were ahead of me, and you immediately veered off to the other aisle, driving aisle on the 2 rows over. And then we proceeded up that way, and then we were going to traverse across to our car, which was beyond her.
Which was beyond her, but the dog had clear vision of us at that point. Mm-hmm. And I thought, it's a lot of the times when people are doing stuff like that, because it could be skewed in so many different ways. That's how you thought. I just felt the energy of that dog completely off, which is why we work well together, because sometimes
it didn't really seem. I thought it was a Labrador at first.
Oh no, I definitely knew it was a Rottie, and he just like, I don't know, he just had this energy about him. It just made me uncomfortable, and the last thing I want is something to happen with a dog that's not mine, and then to end a walk terribly. So I was like, just be safe. Let's just go around these cars. So I proceed to go around the cars, and then right as that dog sees me, I am focusing on the German Shepherd now, because I know he sees that dog, and I don't know if that dog's reactive or not or whatever. So I'm trying to get him focused on me. So I'm not even paying attention. But all of a sudden I hear the leash snap behind me, and that dog bark like a lunatic. And then I rewarded my dog because he didn't react, and then we went to the car. Meanwhile, you had a completely different view.
Right, because I was walking maybe 10, 15 feet behind you with Summer and Journey. Summer was actually
walking Journey.
I think I took Journey. I was like, oh, I see that dog. Let me take Journey to make sure. Or maybe I think I was working with Summer. I either took Journey or I told her, you need to start feeding her now to keep her focus on you. Right. Summer was also learning, but also I didn't know the situation with this dog. And as we got parallel to that dog, he lunged. And we were quite a distance away because we were driving aisle, parked car aisle, and then on the other side of that. So we were quite a distance away. But that dog hit the end of that long line, and she was maybe 6 feet long, in an incredibly aggressive way, which made me really start like, that was fucked up. Like if we talked about this the entire ride home, because this is what happens, these kinds of things. Because as we were approaching initially, she did not say, I have a reactive dog I'm trying to work with, just be aware. She didn't give us any warning at all. So for all intents and purposes, we could have walked right by that dog, like within, say, 6-7 feet. And she didn't warn us at all. And that dog was clearly a dangerous dog.
Yeah.
And I don't say that lightly. There's plenty of dogs that are reactive in our walks that I'm like, oh, that dog's just a dick.
Well, and you can hear it. You can hear it, the type of barking, but the fact that he was silent and then it wasn't until he hit the end of the leash where you heard him.
Yeah.
That is a dog that will get your dog and kill your dog if he gets a handle
like
of
that's
it.
a really aggressive dog.
When they're quiet
And
like
she
that.
was just an average woman. So it's not like she was some giant guy with this. So, that leash could have broken. It could have been ripped out of her hand. A million different scenarios. We could have been hurt. Our dogs could have been hurt. She could have been and for her to not say one single word to us of warning, would you guys mind giving us a little bit of space, which would have irritated me because I'm like, bitch, you shouldn't be all up in the business if your dog's like that.
And not have a muzzle on him.
But at least she would have warned us. And her reaction, you didn't see it because your back was to her at that point.
I'm focusing on my dog.
I saw the whole thing. And that dog hit first of all, hit the end of that leash without a sound. And as soon as he hit the end of the leash, then he really was, rah, that kind of thing, which is, again, we talked about how that's a more dangerous reaction. And she didn't react at all. She sort of let him correct himself by hitting the end of the leash, but she didn't flip out at all. So clearly this is a normal behavior for him and likely a behavior that she was working on, right? So I don't know if she was just a crappy trainer, an uneducated trainer working with this dog, or whether it was an owner who watched a YouTube video and thinks that either way, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt that her intentions were good, that she was trying to work with this dog, work through this behavior, because it clearly was a behavior that she was working on.
Yeah, because otherwise there would have been yelling and screaming like any novice person. But the fact that she was super calm, cool, and collective during this whole encounter.
And then she just gathered him up and walked into the grassy area up the hill, which is honestly where he should have freaking been in the first place. Yep. Because he was over threshold with 30 feet.
There was a lot. We had and
a long enough parked cars. He was over threshold,
and none of our dogs were reacting at him
all. They didn't act before, during, or after. They didn't even look at him.
Nope. So that is true aggression.
That's a scary dog.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I couldn't tell you even now whether she was just an uninformed trainer or just a person trying to figure this out.
But either way, if you have a dog like that, either you need to move and give us space or you need to warn us. Yeah, and the fact that she set that dog up for failure makes me so mad, because I would never put my reactive dog behind a car on a 6-foot leash and let them react at another dog. Let another dog surprise them and let them react that way. The way you do it is you let them see that dog 100 feet away or however far they can get a glimpse on it, so they are able to gather themselves. You can use treats to focus them on you so they know the scary thing is there, and you can kind of gauge whether they need more space or not, depending how close that dog gets.
We were talking about this with Summer on the way back, why the 50 different things this person did wrong, in our opinion. One of them was, if it were me, I would have had the feet moving. I don't like standing still with reactive dogs. I don't think it's fair to them. It makes them feel more anxious.
Especially in a down.
Or if you're talking about a truly aggressive dog, standing still is like stalking, right? It's like getting ready to pounce.
Standing still in a down.
Yeah.
There was she did everything wrong. Everything was wrong.
Yeah.
That dog was in a down, didn't see us coming. And then when he reacted, that was pure stalking and aggression.
So I like moving feet because it is harder to focus on stuff when you're moving, right? The mind actually focuses on the movement of the dog a little bit, so that gives you a little bit of an advantage there. Like you say, you don't do it with all of these when you're working on it specifically, and you can't always arrange actual everyday life like that. But when you're working on it specifically, you want to be in an open space, again, so that dog can see you, and that dog can see the potential thing they're reacting to way in the distance, so you can start redirecting. So and I want to be clear, it's not just about redirecting their energy to you. You're also reconditioning the response from one of aggression to one of, oh, that feels good. That food, I like that. It makes me feel good. Or my guess in this case for this Rottweiler, a really advanced trainer would probably use a tug toy as a reward, because Rotties are guard dogs. So you can redirect that very natural guarding instinct, which is what he was doing, right? It's not compatible with everyday life, but a normal behavior for him. You can then redirect it through the pull, so they get that genetic itch scratched through a tug, pull toy kind of a thing, rather than doing the thing that's incompatible and potentially dangerous, like reacting to a dog.
Yep. And I mean, a good example is in the beginning of our walk, because I'm working with the German Shepherd and he is leash reactive. I always am looking for other dogs' body language, right? So like if I saw in the beginning of our walk that there were these two dogs and they had a really nice greeting on leash. They both had really loose body language. They both didn't come head to head. They came sideways at one another. They smelled each other nicely and they continued walking. So now in that case, I'm like, okay, neither of those dogs are threatening. They both have good social skills. So I imagine when we do walk past him, I'm going to keep the threshold closer than I normally would. The distance closer than I would normally would, because I want to push him to see where he's at. And sometimes I fail, right? Which is the topic of our conversation, is I want to push him to the point where he might fail to see where he's at, so then I can either be more aware of his reactivity or be push him a little bit more than that, right? So failure is a part of training.
It's a calculated risk, right? So basically what you're saying is that dog is likely not going to be reactive walking by because you watched him with an interaction with another dog just a few minutes prior. So this is a good test case. So we can be pretty sure that this dog's not going to be reactive to us. So let's not make too much space. Let's have a more realistic space, maybe just the distance of two lanes in the road.
Yep.
And see what our German Shepherd does, right? And then if it fails, what I tell people is that whatever your dog's doing, they're sharing information.
Yep.
So even if it's failure, they're still sharing information. So you can fail and then just beat yourself up and learn nothing. Or you can fail and say, okay, what did I learn from it? What information did my dog just share with me? So what did the German Shepherd share with you with his behavior?
Because that dog had very loose body language and wasn't threatening, and he's had good experience with our dogs having loose body language and not being threatening. He was aware and alert, but he did not lunge or react, and he was able to take treats. So for me, I can push him more now. I can kind of bring him by a dog that might be a little bit more provocative and not give as much space as I was giving him before. I can maybe make the space a little smaller depending on if that dog's neutral.
Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
I'm surprised you didn't sneeze again.
I'm surprised I didn't sneeze 3 times. Go ahead.
So, it's a give and take. It's really knowing what's in your environment and also like how your dog's doing. So like he's been doing really, really good the last couple of days. And I think I would have not pushed him if we didn't bring a new dog into the situation and he completely saw her as neutral. And those dogs weren't having great body language.
So what you're telling me is that this is part of your calculation. Okay, so we know he's in a good place mentally. He's had several good days in a row, good experiences in a row. He was not feeling particularly brittle today. He wasn't particularly anxious. This dog looked like it was going to be a good test case. And so even if you did it and you failed, because prior to all of this, he had so many positive experiences, a failure would not have set him back.
Yes.
So that's part of the calculation, right? So when we talk about failure being part of dog training, that is exactly what we're talking about. There are times when we fail, when we can't control the circumstances and it's a disaster and it does set the dog back. And that's life.
Yep.
Right. And we have to absorb that. And we can talk about re-regulating from that. And it's got to, the re-regulation has to start at the top of the leash and go all the way down to the dog. Right. And sometimes that's, well, it's more difficult depending on the circumstances,
Yep.
for sure. But in this case, the potential for failure had low potential consequences.
Yep.
So it was time to push him a little bit, even so soon in the training, because we have him for 3.5 more weeks. Got him for a long time.
Yep.
But he's making such nice progress, and pushing him today, I agreed with that decision. I didn't think that, we're pushing him too fast, because he seems to be quite comfortable.
Yeah. And I think that's where we work pretty well, is like sometimes you want to rush into something and I don't think the dog's ready. And therefore, like, we talk about like what the dog's ready for, and vice versa. Like sometimes I'm like, oh no, I think we should do this. And then like yesterday, I was like, I don't know if he's ready to be on a long line with Twiggy in like free space outside, because sometimes they have a hard time making their own decisions when you have like free play for them. But because Twiggy is so into fetch, it's almost like she's completely neutral with him. Where other times, if he tries to mount her, Twiggy's going to correct him, and we don't know how that correction's going to be. So that could set him back, right? If Twiggy corrects him because he's being provocative and he doesn't know that he's being provocative because he's never interacted with a dog before, that's going to set him back because
it would have been
never...
his first experience, off leash in a fenced in environment with another dog.
Yeah.
So that consequence would have been higher. So that was something that we really had to undertake that carefully to make sure that this situation was going to work in his favor. And it did. He did great.
He did really, really great.
Yeah.
So, it's and there are going to be times that you make mistakes and you put dogs that maybe shouldn't be together, or you pass by a person who's a moron and get your dog to react like a crazy dog. And then you kind of put that in your little notebook of, there's a specific dog when we walk around the park that we do not like, and the owner is just kind of a moron, and the dog, because the owner's a moron, is a moron and just has terrible body language and doesn't say anything but makes a super provocative eye contact with every single dog we walk. And therefore, I know every time we pass that dog, I just give every single dog a bit of space, because there's been too many dogs that have reacted to him because he's an idiot.
Yeah, that dog doesn't make a sound.
No.
But he stares down whatever dog he's passing. It's quite provocative.
Yeah, and he has these
even
like
to
weird...
dogs who are fairly well under control, they're insulted by it. It's rude behavior.
Like Deacon walks pretty amazing on leash, and Deacon does not like that dog.
No, I have to be careful to give Deacon a lot of room. Even Vivi's like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah,
he's kind of a jerk.
Yeah. So
he's always a challenge. I try to look at him as a training challenge, but mainly I just look at him as an asshole. I'm not a fan of that guy.
Yeah, no.
I don't think he likes us either.
No, I don't think he likes us either. I mean, there's a couple dogs on the walk that I really don't like. Like we passed the that beagle hound on the leash, and that lady's such a moron. She has like a 20-foot flexi leash, and as we're walking past her, no matter, like, let's say she's walking the dog and the dog's in the middle of the road, which is already like, why is your dog walking in the middle of the road, lady? But whatever. And then she locks it and you're trying to pass her on one of the sides. If that dog's in the middle of the road, she just locks it. She doesn't like reel him in. So then the dog's being super provocative on the end of the leash, assuming that he's going to meet us. And sometimes we can't get around him. And it's just like, I just want to scream. And I'm just like, situations are going to happen like this with owners walking these dogs. And, they're going to have to walk through it. And they might fail walking through it. But if they fail with us, we can kind of get them back on track. And they're going to experience these things with their owners. So I try to kind of make lemon in the lemonade.
No, make lemonade out of
lemons, whatever. But it's, it's a give and take, and failing's a part of life. And I think that's a lot of the times where people make mistakes when they get new puppies, is they don't want them to fail. Right. And then because they don't have them fail, they end up making their dog fail in the long run.
Well, because they don't embrace the failure. Failure is 50% of learning, right? So if you're preventing your dog from failure, which is the whole positive only thing, which makes me crazy. If you're preventing that failure, you are leaving out 50% of the learning. And it's harder for the dogs to learn. Yep. So we talked to Summer today about how to raise a puppy, right? And, letting them walk around the room and input yes and no with the rules around the room is a super important process in teaching them.
Oh my gosh, you tell them no? That's crazy. That's so cruel. You should never
ruin your
do
relationship
that.
with them.
But in reality, what you are doing is you're imprinting, no, you cannot chew my slipper, but yes, you can chew that toy. No, you cannot go on the bathroom in the rug. Yes, you can go outside and use the bathroom. No, you cannot put your paws in the water bowl. Yes, you can drink water out of the water bowl, so, and that's a way of learning. That's how all mammals learn. That's how all creatures learn, is by failing. And to be able to have your dog fail where there is no consequences and they're able to learn from it, it's like, it like turns this little light bulb on in their brain, and it strengthens your relationship with them. Mm-hmm. So like, yes, being positive is great, and having this like great positive relationship with your dog, like obviously everybody wants to do that, but also being able to be there for your dog when they're at their lowest, and being able to be like, it's okay, like we're gonna get through this together, and coming out of that is even more rewarding than only being positive with your dog.
Well, and also a fair and reasonable correction that is clearly understood. What it teaches the dog is, these are the consequences, and I won't die if I have them. Like, it teaches them to bounce back from that, and it lets them predict what those consequences are. The problem with corrections is when they're not applied fairly, or when they're not clearly understood, or when they're that would be not applied fairly. So they're too harsh for the crime, right? We always want the punishment to fit the crime. We don't want to overcorrect for some minor infraction. So, and learning all of those components in doing the correction are super important. If you do all of that, the correction is an important learning tool for the dog. And
also, like, it depends on the dog, right? So, like, if we're going to compare Journey and Twiggy, Journey really doesn't need a lot of, like, you don't have to correct her without her immediately feeling like guilty about whatever you say.
So she's
no
sensitive, so she takes a very, very mild correction relative to other dogs.
Mm-hmm. We're like,
but
Twiggy,
for her, it's intense because she's super sensitive.
Yeah, but like for Twiggy, she's not sensitive at all. So like, you really have to be like, very, very clear. Not like that.
Right.
Do not do that ever again.
Right. You can't be subtle with her. Mm-hmm. It has to be very black and white.
Otherwise, she'll just walk all over you.
And be unhappy. Mm-hmm. Because a dog who is constantly trying to push the boundaries, and the boundaries are gray and constantly shifting, because you're not willing to draw that line in the sand and say no every single time. The answer is no, my friend, on that. That makes a dog anxious and stressed. Mm-hmm. And then they start to really push boundaries in other ways. And this is when people will say stuff like they're being stubborn, or they're being obstinate, or they're, doing this. They're
purposely sabotaging us. And it's like, no, they're not.
It's natural behavior. So that is your cue to have clear, stronger boundaries and making them super consistent. Then you start to see the anxiety come down, which we've seen in this German Shepherd.
Yep.
Not that we're doing a lot of correcting on him, because he's a pretty sensitive guy. But with each day that passes and the structure of the day being the same, and encouraging him to face his fears a little bit with other dogs, he went from being really quite anxious on our first walk to now like just walking so calm and peacefully.
He does pull on the leash, but because he's not anxious, he doesn't want to pull on the leash because he's enjoying the walk.
Yeah, he's a very lovely walker at this point. And that's not some brilliant dog training. That's just getting him to regulate and adjust to the environment, giving him, this is what you get when you do this, this is what you get when you do that. Isn't, choice A better? Then you start to see that anxiety come
and
down.
Also him understanding that we're going to hold him accountable for his actions, but we're going to be fair about it. Mm-hmm. So he knows exactly what's going to happen. And I think where this, epidemic of anxiety that comes in, it's because of lack of knowledge. They just don't understand. I thought this is the time we go on the walk, and now we're on the walk, and then we're going in the different direction. We never go in this way, and then there's a dog in the yard. That dog's never in that yard. So and then they start spiraling instead of doing a very consistent walk where you are the leader and you're like, okay, we're going this way. You're fine. Calm down. Mm-hmm. You're not pulling on the leash. Stop. Chill out. Yeah, there's a dog there. Don't worry. I'll make space for you. Here's some cookies. So it's setting them up for success throughout the walk, and understanding that these are living things and they're going to have feelings about things changing. And the more consistent and better your communication is with them, the more you can do kind of different things with them and know that they may or may not succeed with what you're trying to do.
And if you talk about mistakes, right? If you're doing some training with the dog, and we wouldn't necessarily do this with so much with our training dogs, because if you're doing like higher level actual training with, say, Twiggy or whatever, you're asking her to do a behavior that's pretty complex, and she does it and she succeeds, and then you change the criteria and she's not paying attention and she does the original thing and you go, nope, and you correct her. Yeah, that mistake is super pivotal because they're so into the game at that point. They're like, oh, you got me, right? So mistakes can be actually quite positive if you're motivating the dog properly. And it's very rewarding to work with a dog who gets that, because it's almost like a game of competition, right? And when you make a mistake and you lose the game or whatever, you get tackled or whatever the game is, it's part of the game, and it might be on its face unpleasant, but it's part of the game and part of the fun of it, right?
Well,
part of the risk of
every
it.
single time you describe this to clients, it's like slap hands, right? So like you're playing that slap hand games, and then you get hit on the hand. It's not pain. It's painful, of course, but
you
like,
laugh when it's
you
done.
laugh and you're like, damn, I wasn't fast
You don't
enough.
punch the person. You laugh and you go, and let's do it again. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Right. That if you motivate your dogs properly, and this is, generally for higher drive dogs when you're doing more advanced stuff, those mistakes can be really quite rewarding and motivating to let's do it again and let me get it right this time. And then when you do get it right, that dopamine hit is at an all-time high.
And I mean, that's what I've been focusing on this German Shepherd, right? It's like anytime I let him through a doorway, because he's so impulsive and doesn't have any rules around doors and going through things, it's very anxious energy. I don't want him, you're not allowed out of the crate until you're sitting there not whining. So if it takes me 20 minutes to get you into the car, it takes me 20 minutes to get you into the car. But because I'm persistent and I do it every single time, and the punishment that's going to happen if you decide to run out the gate, we're going to start all over again, which is I'm not really correcting him as much as I'm just putting him back in the kennel and being like, no, you have to sit. That's the punishment, is you have to sit there. And then when he does get the reward, then he gets to go on a walk. So like, no matter how you slice it, if it takes me 20 minutes to do it, he still wins at the end of the game.
So I'm pretty sure that's the Premack principle. So they'll do a less likely behavior when the reward is a more likely, or something that they want to do. So they do something that they kind of don't want to do in order to get to do something that they want to do. I think that's the Premack principle. Part of, it was Premack. So yeah, we use that a lot.
Yeah.
Because then you're not actually doing any kind of physical corrections. The reward is you get to actually go do what you want to do.
Yep.
Easy to maximize that to get your dog to do things. We tell this at our go home lesson all the time. Use the things that they want to do to get the behaviors that you want, to work on that impulse control. And the failure is intrinsic in that. It's part of that, right? You get up and walk this way. Well, I'm not moving. Come on back and sit. We can't leave this kennel, or we can't get out of this car, or we can't get in the car, whatever. Can't leave the doorway until you do the behavior that you're supposed to do.
And then once they figure out that routine, it becomes very enjoyable, because they're like, oh, I'm sitting, let's go. And then it's just part immediate. Of your routine. And then people are like, oh my God, your dog's so amazing. They sit before going in the car, and they sit to do this and they sit to do that. It's really not amazing. It's just building a relationship with my dog, holding them accountable for their actions, and then them following the rules, which they want to do, because that's what we've raised dogs to do, is to follow rules and to listen to us. And I think people forget,
so what the mistakes that people make in those circumstances, right, is they start out, with the best intentions, right? Teaching their dog not to cross the threshold without an okay or something like that. And then it becomes less enforced and then inconsistently enforced, right? That's when the confusion and the frustration comes in. So you're better off asking for nothing than inconsistently asking for something. Mm-hmm. And I try to really imprint this on our clients. Like, don't call your dog unless you're ready to enforce it if they choose not to come. Or don't call them unless you have the ability to make them come when they've decided that whatever pile of leaves is more interesting than you are.
I mean, right? And this is also why we recommend people to get spring puppies, because you're not going to go out there when you have a winter puppy to go get your dog out the snow. Like and I know you don't want to go outside with a leash to get them to go to the bathroom every 30 minutes, as we've talked about in other podcasts. Like, I don't know, like, set you and your dog up for success.
Well, you just have to go into it with the knowledge of this is the way it's going to be. Frustrates me when people say, well, I paper trained them all winter because I didn't want to take them outside in the cold.
Okay. Then you shouldn't have gotten a winter puppy.
And now you're wondering why they're not housebroken. Because again, those are inconsistent.
It's confusing.
Yeah, it's inconsistently applied rules that dogs are not good with nuance and stuff like that.
So like if you are one of those, so we haven't had a lot of clients, but we've had a couple clients that were like, okay, well, we want them to pee on the wee-wee pad in the house, but then also use the bathroom outside. You know how hard that is to teach your dog to use a wee-wee pad in the house and to also go to the bathroom outside?
If I could teach your dog to read your mind, I would be making a lot more money than I'm making. I mean, you have to be realistic, and that's usually something that we put the kibosh on immediately.
Yeah, we're just like, that's unrealistic. No, you need to choose one or the other. You can't choose both. You can't have your cake and eat it too.
No, for sure. So mistakes and failure, I try to tell people that these are good things. It gives you information and it helps you pivot and do things a little differently. Or see it for what it is. A lot of times when we're working with a dog, when failure happens, it's a good thing because it's a part of the process. And almost you have to be at a certain point in training to get that particular failure, which means you're at a certain milestone,
and
right?
Also, sometimes, like we talk about learned disobedience. And once you get to a point where like you have a good relationship with your dog, sometimes you'll ask them to do a command and they won't do it. And you're just like, what? Like, you always do this command. Why aren't you doing this command? And then you realize that they have a pricker in their paw, or there's another dog up ahead and they need a treat reward, or like whatever the situation is. And it's, why aren't you doing this behavior? This is a strange behavior because you usually do it. And then they're telling you about something that you're not aware of. So an example is when I went mountain biking the other day, last season, and I was riding with Twiggy and I saw another dog off leash. And I looked at Twiggy and I yelled at the guy and I was like, I have a dog. Is your dog friendly? And he didn't hear me. And then I told her to stay close by me, and that dog charged her. And even though I gave her the command to stay by me, she ran in the other direction. And that's learned disobedience of like, you need to do what you got to do to survive. And I'm not going to correct you for that behavior, because if she would have stayed with me and listened to my command, that dog probably would have fought her and they would have gotten a scuffle.
Okay, so let me then take that one step further, and that sometimes something like that can happen with your dog, and you, I don't know what happened outside the door there, and you give them a pass because it was a reasonable decision. And then they decide to take full advantage of that and they do it again without a reason. So sometimes that happens. And when that happens, then you just apply your, that's not acceptable here.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have dogs who are always pushing boundaries. And when something reasonable happens and you allow it to slide, it can then feed into more of that. And then you just have to accept that, okay, well, next time I'm going to go back to my regularly applied, we don't allow that. Our dogs are always communicating with us, and it's always heartbreaking when they're trying to tell you something and you don't understand. And then you realize later, oh, shoot, you had something in your paw. That's why you were doing that. You didn't want me to clip your nails because your foot hurt or whatever.
Well, it's like Remy had to go to the vet because she's been peeing a lot, and every single time at dinner, we call it yodeling, and she just yodels by the door, and then we start blaming all these pee spots around the house on Tula.
Well, blaming, and let's clarify that. Blaming is me just muttering, God damn it.
Yeah.
I don't actually yell at Tula.
No. But if you don't catch your dog in the act, you can't really discipline them.
I'm like, what the heck is going on with this dog?
Why is she
ridiculous?
Yeah.
And it was freaking Remy the whole time.
It was Remy the whole time. And so I guess, yeah. So, you make mistakes.
Yeah, and then you look back on it and you're
them.
like, okay, I see what was going on there. I'm not sure the yodeling, I'm sure that was part of it.
But it also became a chaining thing. Like she was just like,
then
oh,
it
this is
became
what
a
I
habit.
do at dinner time. And Aussies are so quick to catch habits that we were just like, I guess this is just,
Yeah, so
old lady
unfortunately, we took her in for a urinalysis, and her urine is very dilute, which is not a good sign. That means that there's probably something else going on, not just a simple UTI. So we're waiting on those. We did some blood work, waiting on that result. In the meantime, she's wearing underpants.
Yeah, which she looks pretty cute.
Which I 50% of the time forget to take off when I let her out in the morning, and then I go running out on the lawn going, Remy, before she squats, and every time she squats, and I'm like, ah!
She squats so fast.
I know. I always think she probably is thinking when I'm running towards her, like she wants me to pee real fast, and I'm like, no, I don't want you to pee. So we haven't had a dog in pants in a while. So.
Yeah, and Ruby's gotten better. She had her pants on, and then
yeah, but Ruby didn't have dilute pee.
No, her pee was normal.
So Remy has been declining in the last year.
Yeah.
So I hope that
and you were saying before how we've been kind of mentally preparing for Ruby and for Ty because they've just
Ruby's 14.
And
Ty has always been sort of an old man, and he's got some arthritis, and
we can't walk him the same way we used to. We can't walk
I
Ruby
don't
at
see
all.
Ty making 14, so I sort of mentally prepare for that. But Remy came out of left field. She's only 12, and she came out of left field, and I'm like, oh, I'm not prepared for that.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah.
I'm not prepared for that one. So hopefully it's something that's treatable. Mm-hmm. Other than that, she seems fine.
Yeah, she's
eating well, running around.
Being a jokester.
Yeah, she was playing with Ty earlier. So she seems to feel okay, although she does have a little bit of dementia and a little bit of hearing loss.
Yep. But it's not a big deal because when she realizes that you're calling her, she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
and
she's so sweet.
running. And you're like, oh, you're so freaking cute.
She's an underrated dog in the house. Mm-hmm. She's a good girl. We love her. Mm-hmm. All right. I don't know if we covered much. Mistakes, failure. It's all part of the game. Don't feel bad about it, I guess. Learn from it and move on and accept that nobody's perfect. Yep. But most of the time, failure can be really a part of your plan.
Yep.
All right, guys, we're going to wind it up. See, I told you we were going to keep it short today. Look how short we kept it.
I'm hungry.
Yes, let's go eat some lunch. All right, guys, we will see you next time on Dog for Thought. Bye. Dog for Thought is written and hosted by me, Sarah Brown, co-hosted by Sophie Brown, produced, edited, and original music by Jacob Brown. Don't forget to like and subscribe.